Hello and welcome to the Mindful Men podcast, a show helping men to open up about manhood. My name is Simon Rennie and my aim is to get men talking. From mental health to fatherhood and everything in between, Mindful Men creates a safe space for conversation. Now, before we get into this episode, I want to say a huge thank you for joining me. It means a world for you to join me and talk about men's issues. And if you love what you hear, please subscribe and share the episode with your mates. You can also join the conversation on Instagram and YouTube, and I'd love to connect with you there. But for now, sit back, relax, and let's get mindful. G'day guys, and welcome to another episode of the Mindful Men podcast. My name is Simon Rennie, and I'm the man behind Mindful Men. I'm absolutely pumped today. I've got Bart Walsh with me from the sunny coast, just down the road from where I'm recording today. And Bart is the head coach of Jets Fitness Australia. Now, before I get into talking to Bart, I wanted to share a little bit of a story. So way back, I think it was 2020 or so, before COVID had hit, and I was going to Jets Gym. I was a member there doing my J series. And I got talking to the club manager, and he mentioned Bart's name as a great bloke to talk about men's issues and men's health and well-being. So I was super stoked when Bart said that he'd be happy to come on to the Mindful Men podcast. So without trying to sound too creepy, Bart, your name's been on my mind for a few years, and I'm super glad that you're here. So thanks for coming on.
And thanks for having me, Simon. It's a pleasure to be here. And it's not creepy at all, mate. I'm
Wonderful. Now, the Mindful Men podcast is a show that aims to support boys and men to open up about pretty much anything, from mental to physical health, to what's happening at school, what's happening at work. And I've had the pleasure of doing a few gym sessions with you when I was due at Jets Fitness, and I haven't been for a few years. COVID impacted my life a lot in terms of my health and fitness, and I've been in and out of gyms ever since the world has opened up again. So it's good to see you again. But I always like to start off and throwing you over to you to tell us a bit about who you are and how you come to be where you are today.
Yeah, sure, mate. I live on the Sunshine Coast, but I was sort of born and raised in northeast Victoria. I was actually born in Albury, which I suppose is just New South Wales, if you know the geography of that area. And I grew up in a town called Wangaratta. And my mum and dad were both teachers. Dad was the principal of my primary school, which was a very interesting thing growing up. But I suppose to nutshell everything, I had a wonderful childhood. I had plenty of aunties and uncles, and I had two older sisters and a younger brother. And all the memories I have, just about all, are very positive and very happy. And I consider myself very grateful for the way I was brought up and the environment I was brought up in. But I suppose my interests are very diverse, and they still are at the moment. And being in that beautiful home environment and being in a good school environment, I got into acting of all things in high school, which there's a whole lot of funny stories that sort of sprout from that seed. But I had a wonderful teacher named Julie Nolan, who was sort of the head of drama and theatre, and she really encouraged me to really pursue this as a career. And so there was a point in sort of year 10 or 11 where I kind of had to choose between playing AFL footy, which I really loved, which now that I think back on it, sort of started my love of physicality, of movement, of fitness. So I had to choose between footy and acting, and I decided to be very theatrical and pursue an acting degree in university. And so that's what I studied. It's funny, the position I have now really leads into having an exercise science or sort of some sort of physical training degree, but my background is in the arts, which I think has really benefited me. Being able to communicate clearly and tell stories and know the weight of stories and how storytelling is sort of a very big part of our culture. And so that's what I did at university, a 3-year acting degree. I am a firm believer that everyone should do some form of physical or vocal art at some point in their life. And so we spent the first year sort of breaking down our body, rolling on the floor, finding resonance, doing movement classes, voice classes. And then in the second year, we started looking at text. We started looking at Shakespeare, some very traditional, even sort of Greek mythology texts. And in third year, it's all about professional practice, sort of taking everything you learned from first and second year, putting you in this, putting it all together and shaping you as an actor. So when you hit the industry, you have some sort of standard.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously made some great friends during that time, learned a lot about my body and about myself. And I think that sort of paves the way to my perception on life at the moment. That was a very foundational part of my life. And then I finished university, got an agent, and was an actor for a little while, which is really interesting. And so I mainly did sort of stage work. My film credits were, I think, 2 episodes on Neighbours back in 2012, where I played a character called Miguel Ferreira. Great one. Can you tell the Mexican complexion? Not quite, but it was an awesome time. I got to meet sort of the characters that are on the show at the moment. I got to understand how the show works. And for those who don't know who Neighbours is, what Neighbours is, classic soap opera in Australia, and they run it like clockwork. So you're in this big room, and then on one scene in front of you, it's Lou's house, and they pivot 15 degrees, and it's a new scene, and they pivot 15 degrees, and it's a new scene. So they can bang out episodes a day. It's a fantastic place. What else? I did the Dr. Blake Mysteries, which is an ABC show. I was on an episode of that. But I did lots of stage work, and I really liked the forum of being in front of people and doing things live, which again sort of informs what I do now. I'm not one to stick to a script. I like the connection between two people and the communication between two people.
Yeah.
But mate, like looking back now that I'm a bit older, my childhood, my high school years, my uni years, I wouldn't change for the world. They really taught me some things that I didn't know at the time, obviously, but have really shaped me to who I am today.
Yeah, and 2 questions. One, who's your footy team?
I'm a North Melbourne supporter, but I don't like to talk about it at the moment. We are very poor, but I'm blue and white through and through, shin boner my whole life.
I saw a good video of Glenn Archer's son telling him the other day that he was going to play his first game, and brought Mr. Shinboner himself to tears, which was a beautiful moment.
That's right. The Shinboner of the century. I know it was a very touching moment as well. And I think his comments were, we're a very emotional family.
I couldn't imagine that in that household, but it was good to see.
No.
But did you go to uni in where you lived, or did you move away for uni, or?
So I went to uni at the University of Ballarat, which is now Federation University, but they have a really it's a wonderful place. Like, I don't know if you've ever been to Ballarat. It's a very old mining town. There's like cobblestone streets everywhere, history around every corner. And sort of in the middle of town is what they call the Arts Academy. And the Arts Academy is separate from the Mount Helen campus, which is a bit further out of town, where all the teachers and the normal degrees do their work. We sort of got this little pocket of arts. And it was a wonderful little community, because I was doing an acting course, but there were people who did musical theatre alongside us, people who did fine arts, graphic arts, the whole gamut. So we got to hang around some very artistic individuals, and it was almost as if we lived in our own little world that just happened to be in the middle of a country town in Victoria. Yeah,
I didn't expect that. I thought you might have had to move to Melbourne or Sydney to do more arts study.
Yeah, well, at University of Melbourne, Victorian College of the Arts has a wonderful a whole host of arts degrees. And of course, there's NIDA and WAPA over in WA, and NIDA in Sydney. But I really liked the small town feel of Ballarat, because that's what I grew up with. And I eventually did move to Melbourne afterwards. But the city is not for me. I don't know about you, but I'm a country boy, and I need trees, I need grass, I need space. Yeah,
I grew up in Adelaide, so it's kind of like a big country town. And I've dabbled in Brizzy, which is a slightly bigger country town, I'd say. Not many people say that, but I think it's very similar to Adelaide and so forth. But what was it like moving from you said you didn't really like the city, but moving from the country to the city? How did that come about, and what did you get up to?
What did I get up to? The city's a great place, and growing up in the country, the first thing you want to do is get out of there and experience what the city and metropolitan areas are like. But you live there enough, the novelty wears off, and then you realize why your parents sort of lived where they lived and why they grew you up where you grew up. And I think there's something quite quite special about it. And I'm sure there's some great stats out there of the amount of people that sort of grew up in a rural town, moved and then moved back. I'm sure there's quite a high percentage. But the city itself I had a really great city experience. For about a year of my life, I lived in, I think it was floor 12 of a 42-story building. So I lived that real city life where, you know, everything was cement. You know, I took an elevator to get home. It was fun at the time, absolutely. And there was lots of people to meet. And the gym I was working at the time was probably one of the best gyms I think I've ever been in. So it definitely served a purpose. But whether you take the country out of the boy, you can't take the boy out of the country, something like that.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned that footy was a bit of a foundation for your fitness pathway. When did you start working in gyms and getting that kind of bug?
So it was in my third year of university in Ballarat where I joined my first gym, and it was an on-track fitness on Sturt Street in Ballarat. I still remember the trainer I had. His name was Blair. He took me through my consultation, that sort of stuff. But I did it mainly for the aesthetics, because I understood that as bad as it is, being in the acting industry, the way you look and the way you are perceived often dictate what roles you'll get. Yeah. And I tell this story a lot, but there was one role I went for. I can't remember what the show was, but it was on like a network called Stars or something really American. And the deal was you had to be just shredded to the bone and look a certain way. So before the filming, you went through a 3-month training camp to make you look a certain way. I didn't get the role, and I asked for feedback of why I didn't get the role, and they said I was 1 inch too tall and my eyes were the wrong color.
Oh wow!
No, so it's very cutthroat in terms of what some directors are looking for. And now some of that stuff's out of your control. But the thing that was in my control was my musculature or how I was perceived on the camera. So that's sort of what got me into it. But little did I know that introduction all those years in Ballarat just started this big snowball of curiosity on how the body works and sort of how the body responds to adaptation. And I really loved the freedom of understanding that I could change my physiology through my actions. Mm-hmm. And we still can. And I still fundamentally think every person deserves to know how to change their physiology in whatever way they want through their actions. So it was a small beginning, but it sort of snowballed into a career, I suppose.
Yeah, and here you are now, the head coach of Jets Fitness Australia. Big gym. It's got like a lot of gyms around the country, over 180 now.
And about 180 in Australia. There's 60 odd in New Zealand. We got 10 in the UK.
Wow.
We're almost at 40 in Thailand, but we're in Vietnam and the Netherlands as well. So internationally, we're growing. And in Southeast Asia in particular, they have quite a flavour for our brand. So it's good to be part of. So my role predominantly stays within Australia, but it's good to know that the network spreads internationally.
Yeah, that's amazing. And we'll get into your role at Jets Fitness in a little while. But I'm a big fan of your Instagram page. You're very open about some hardships that you've gone through over the years. And I'd love to talk a bit about this and kind of like the mindset and the things that you did to kind of push your way through all these different hardships. And 23 years old, you were diagnosed with a rare and aggressive tumor under the right side of your jaw. And I remember reading the news.com article about your time in hospital, and you're getting quite, I guess, angry at some of the other patients in there getting pushed around in wheelchairs and so forth. Mm-hmm. But can you tell us a bit about this time and from, when you were diagnosed and what that felt like to you, and then maybe how it impacted your life?
Absolutely. A very, very formative year of my life when I was 23, back in 2014. I just finished a youth conference. So I volunteer for a non-for-profit called Y League. They're actually based up here in Brisbane. They're a wonderful non-for-profit, and I still love my connection with them. I just finished a conference, and I realized that there was a lump sort of growing under my jaw. And me being, a typical 23-year-old male, nothing can kill me. I didn't think anything of it until it started growing. And so I obviously got it checked out. And it's actually a really interesting story. The first doctor I saw just said, yep, that's a lump. Let's cut that sucker out and let's move on. And then the night before that surgery, I got a call from the doctor's office, and the receptionist said, look, the doctor forgot he was going on holidays that day. He thought he was going the next day, so we can't do your surgery. Let's reschedule. And I said, don't worry about it. I'd like to get a second opinion anyway.
Yeah.
And so got the second opinion, got the biopsy. And about this time, the tumor was about the size of a baseball, 10.2 centimeters in diameter. So it's quite obvious. And then I got diagnosed with a malignant peripheral nerve sheath tumor, a sarcoma. So it grew within about the space of 6 weeks. And then I later found out that if I had gone through with the surgery of the first doctor, the odds of the cancer cells still being there are very high, because when you take out a sarcoma, you have to take a margin. And so you can see the margin's quite large on my neck here. And if the doctor didn't take out a margin, the odds of that cancer spreading was very high. So there was something sort of, the universe was doing some sort of wisdom on that day to make sure that doctor went on holiday and I didn't have that surgery. But from there, the process was a little bit convoluted. So it was growing very fast. And so the question was, do we cut it out and then do radiation, or do radiation therapy and then cut it out? And the choice was to get it out as fast as possible and do the radiation therapy thereafter. And so the operation was quite confronting at first. It was about sort of 3 days there without going through what the operation would look like. And there was a point there where they were going to have to take my voice box. And so for a couple of days there, I thought, I was trying to comprehend what my life would look like without being able to speak. And so what I did was I got a notebook out and I wrote everything that was on top of my mind, which now turns out to be a great activity for me to get things out of my head. But I filled the entire notebook with words. And then I had another meeting with the doctor, and they said, look, we don't have to take your voice box. This is good. And so then I threw that notebook out because to be honest, I didn't want to read what was in there. I can't remember to this day what was in there. But the operation didn't take my voice box, but did have to take the floor of my mouth, my teeth on my right hand side, and a little bit of my tongue. And so they took the tumor out, sort of like a short rib. So the tumor was on the bone. They took the whole thing out and then replaced it with a bone in my leg, my fibula. And so the tissue you see here and the tissue that sits inside my mouth is actually my quad. So they took some skin from my upper leg and so it just squished everything together and then sewed it up. So the recovery process was long. I was on liquids for I think 3 or 4 months, so I couldn't eat solids. I was breathing through a hole in my neck for maybe 2 or 3 weeks after the surgery. Had to learn to breathe again, to swallow again. And this is a really tough thing now that comes to mind. I spent all these years working on my voice as an actor, finding resonance, learning plosive sounds, and really understanding how to use my voice to portray a message. And after the surgery, and still now, my voice is quite different. And it's quite hard for me to hear that, especially after all that training. So my partner at the time was an actor as well. And we often did lines together when she did auditions. And I heard my voice on the recording of her doing a self-take or something. And I just couldn't bear it. Couldn't bear it in the slightest. And I think that was one of the hardest things to sort of get around, that the way I communicate, something that I'm very passionate about, is very different now. And so rehab was rehab. I was if you can name any solid meal, I can guarantee you I tried to liquefy it and drink it. Steak and potatoes, pesto chicken. I needed some variety, and none of it was very good. My leg was quite compromised because of the bone they took out. So my gait, the way I walked, was different. And I don't know. It's funny when I look back on it now. I look back on myself as 23, and I think I was really looking for something, and so I was searching for attention through acting, and the way I behaved at parties and stuff like that was very me. Well, that's the way I perceive it now. And then this happened, and I don't think I knew how to feel. Because it's such a big thing that happens to you, and you can't prepare for it in the slightest. And you do have to quite literally take it minute by minute, day by day, hour by hour, and do things sometimes to distract you until you're recovered enough to process everything. And I don't think I'll ever get to a point in my life where I've fully comprehended what's happened. But as the years go on, things make more sense to me, and the way I think I felt back then does make sense. But at the time, I think I was just a bit ignorant to my own feelings.
Yeah.
And the way it sort of impacted my life at the moment, I think it's turned out to be quite a positive thing. Well, that's the way I like to think about it. And so now the way I sort of see adversity is that if something bad happens to you, yep, it's bad. And at the moment you feel the way you feel. But the knowledge that I'm going to be stronger at the end of this is at the forefront of my mind.
Yeah.
And so I think of that in most workouts. The adversity you find in a workout is the knowledge of you getting stronger after the fact. And that really helps to persevere. So I love the line that my partner told me a little while ago of make the love greater than the loss. So if you've lost something, you can choose through your actions and through the way you think and the way you feel to turn that into a positive in some way, even though it is inherently quite negative on the outset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And going through that, like that period when you're, in 23, 24 and onwards, did you have a support network around you to work through that, or was it a lot of it individualized? Tell us about that support.
I have a wonderful family, and I really feel sorry for what my mum went through when I was sick. It was bad for me, but I imagine it would feel bad for her and my father, having to see me go through it and not being able to do anything about it. And that being said, they were with me every night. There was sort of the first couple of weeks in hospital, I didn't want to be alone in the hospital room, just in case I was breathing through a trachea, a hole in my neck, and often it got clogged, and the fear of falling asleep and choking was really real. And so Mum stayed on the couch next to me. So my partner at the time, Meg, she really helped me through that process. And she's still being an actor and doing her creative things at the moment, which I really respect. But both of them in particular were there for me every single step of the way. And not to mention people from afar as well. I got cards from primary schools in Wangaratta that sent me good luck cards and get better soon. All my friends and family from eons ago were there. My best mate Timmy Mack at the time gave me a hard drive with just heaps of television shows and movies on it, which really helped me through. And my support network was very strong. And I suppose that's sort of planting the seed of this concept of we are stronger together, and it does take a tribe, and it is very true. But I do remember saying at the time as well, I have so much support around me. I understand that, but I also have never felt so alone, because it's hard to translate the way you feel, because no one else has that empathy. No one else has that diagnosis that I knew of around me. So there was sort of a part of the journey where you have to internalize it and put it on yourself to work through. But I always found great comfort in having other people there, and even just, they don't need to be doing anything, but just having someone there was integral, and to be honest, still is.
Yeah. A lot of guys really struggle with opening up about what's happening internally and feeling that isolation when they're going through something. Was that something that you found easy to talk about, given that you had a good support network around you, or did you still found it quite difficult to open up about what was happening inside for you?
Initially I struggled. I really struggled with talking about it. I think I was very ashamed of it in a way. And I got really sick of telling the same story again and again and again and again, even if that story was true or not. But it was also sort of the first time that I experienced anxiety and understanding what that feeling is. And I don't know. I think having the support network there was very important. And I do feel sorry for people who are going through the same sort of situation and don't have that support network there with them. But in terms of opening up, that sort of happened a little bit later down the track. You mentioned that news article where, if I recall, I look back on it now and I read that article on news.com, and I just see a boy who just didn't know where to place his feelings. And that kind of goes back to me not knowing how to feel. And so I sort of put that blame on the universe. Why is this happening to me? And why is it that people can treat their body like trash and and live this way? I do understand now that was definitely misled application of rage. But once that article hit, I woke up to thousands of comments and news the media trying to get in touch to get an interview, and I had to push all that to the side. I couldn't the thought of trying to vocalize what I was feeling was impossible. So it did take a while to open up, and to be honest, I don't think I haven't hit the nail on the head on how to open up fully just yet. My beautiful partner often jokes about when we met that it was like a fortress.
Yeah.
She knew something really good and juicy was inside there and loving, but you had to just break through layer after layer of brick almost before you could find that core in those feelings. And I do find myself sort of acting that way with other people still.
Yep.
I think that's mainly because of who I am. The thought of my story triggering someone else or causing someone to feel bad in that moment, I don't want in the slightest. Often I'll avoid the harsh stuff and sort of either change the conversation or move the conversation onto something lighter just to make that moment a bit easier for the other person. So it's a skill, opening up on how you're feeling. And to be honest, understanding how your body is feeling is a skill as well. Like I said, when I was 23, I had no idea what was happening in my head or how to process it. But now I can see it a little bit more clearer. But still working on it.
And these things do take time sometimes. For my experience, so I've lived with depression and anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder for 30 years, and it took a good 20 years to open up and start talking. And if it wasn't for my now wife, who basically pushed me to go see my GP and just say something's not quite right, I don't know where I'd be today. And that's 10 years ago now. So I'm
something about that dichotomy, hey, the male feeling this way, but the female being able to do something to us to action something like that. There's something evolutionary there. I think exactly what happened to me as well.
Definitely. And I am so grateful that you are willing to share your story today. I know it can be difficult, as you've expressed. So I really am thankful for you opening up. And the reason I do this podcast and Mindful Men on Instagram and so forth is kind of the opposite of what you were just saying, is in terms of if I can share my story and the stories of guys and girls around the world. I've interviewed females as well. And it helps just one person to open up and say, oh, something's not quite right here. Maybe I'll go see my GP or see someone that I trust and just have a chat about what's going on. I guess that's the whole purpose of what we're trying to achieve here. So, but I wanted to talk a bit about recovery now. So you've gone through this this cancer, quite aggressive and serious cancer. And you mentioned it changed your body, the way you walked and the way you talked and all that type of thing. So what did recovery look like for you in those months afterwards, and if not years afterwards?
To be honest, and still dealing with this now, the hardest thing for me was eating. So I've lost all my teeth, all the bottom teeth on this side of my mouth. So I had to learn to only chew on one side, and I lost a bit of my tongue as well, so to manipulate food in my mouth. So in terms of the recovery process, look, the physicality of the leg is fine. The bone they took is just a load-bearing bone. So it's not necessary for, it's not functional for movement, just mainly to brace the leg. So that heals quite quickly. There was a staple still stuck in my quad for a long time, which they eventually, the nurse eventually took out. But the scars are still there, so I still struggle with a bit of range of motion through my hip flexor and my quad. But the eating was the hardest part. It took me a long time to get back onto solid foods. And it's funny with radiation therapy, that the way they do it is that they sort of make a mask of your face with like frills, and then they lie on the bed and then pin that mask to the bed. So every time they shoot radiation into you, it's in the same spot. And horrifying at the time. So I struggled with breathing and swallowing, but what radiation did to my taste bud was really interesting too. So the foods, not only could I not eat the foods that I used to like, but my taste was different. So for example, I found tomato sauce for whatever reason spicy at the time, which has now changed, thank God, because tomato sauce is delicious. But finding a way to get back into the rhythm of eating the foods that I like and finding the foods that I like was a real struggle. And even now at the moment, I avoid really crunchy. This is a very strange thing. I avoid really crunchy food because I can't chew it as predominantly. My jaw is now misaligned because there's a lot of compensation from just chewing on this side. So I often try and find sort of really mushy foods and slow cooked foods that I can chew and digest a bit better. The voice, so I've sort of talked about a little bit there, but in terms of like cancer wise, that's all gone, thankfully. The people at the Peter Mac Cancer Centre in Melbourne really looked after me. So that seemed to go away by itself. So the radiation that they did zap must have zapped, all the excess cells that were there after the surgery. And now sort of the only limitations I have are sort of due to another reason and not necessarily the surgery itself.
Yeah. Okay. So we just touch on your cancer battle and your cancer recovery, and I guess you're a man that's overcome multiple, I guess, hardships over time and over your life. And last year you had another diagnosis of hereditary sensorimotor peripheral neuropathy. That's a bit of a tongue twister. And you shared this on your Instagram because you're going to CrossFit Games this year, which is super exciting, and congratulations as well. But tell us about this diagnosis and how it's impacted you, I guess, in the lead up to going to the CrossFit Games.
Absolutely. I knew for a long time that my legs, in particular my lower legs, there's something going on there. And early on in my life, I had an eye doctor say you've got a condition called neurofibromatosis, which is a different condition than what we're about to talk about. And so I sort of took that to gospel without actually getting a real diagnosis. And so I sort of attributed my shortcomings in my lower limbs to that. But it sort of wasn't until a couple of years ago where I decided to stop sweeping things under the carpet and sort of get down to what's actually happening with my body. And so from about the age of 17, 18, 19, somewhere around there, my below my knees has started getting skinnier and skinnier and skinnier. The muscle has been wasting away. The feeling is becoming less and less. So now I have very little feeling below my knee, and my ankles are slowly starting to sort of fuse. So the range of motion of dorsal and plantar flexion in my foot is almost nil. And so I went and saw a neurologist, and she was awesome. She was did what's called a conduction test, and she gave a running diagnosis of hereditary motor sensor peripheral neuropathy, which I'm slowly getting my tongue around. The old school term is Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease, or CMT. And it sort of encapsulates a whole heap of genetic disorders under this one umbrella. And unfortunately, I've done the genetic tests for all the CMT panels, and we don't know which gene of mine is affected. And so I can sort of go down the path of figuring out what that gene is, but it'll cost thousands of dollars. And we can assume what's happening to me is very similar to other gene SNPs. And so what it means basically is I'm slowly using the use of my peripheral nervous system. So my legs and my arms, central nervous system, brain and spinal cord, peripheral nervous system, sort of everything else. And the condition itself is hard to predict. So for some people, they'll sort of get to the state where I'm at now and they'll stay the same for the rest of their life. So they might still have some function going into older age. But what we often see is just a slow demise and loss of the nerves in your extremities. And so it appears in my hands a little bit as well, which was unbeknownst to me. The neurologist said, yep, you've got signs of it in your hands too, which is very surprising because my forearm and arm strength is very strong, but my leg strength isn't very much. And so we kind of have to open up the conversation about how it affects my lifestyle. So I'll have to get what's called hand controls in cars because slowly my feet won't be able to work. I have to get certain stents put in my legs to help with my drop foot. And then hopefully, we'll wait and see. Hopefully I'll be able to walk for a few more years, but there might come a time where I'll need crutches or a wheelchair, depending on the state of the condition. But the funny thing is when I got diagnosed, I knew it was happening. I didn't know the name of the condition, but I knew that was the roundabout thing that was happening to me. So it didn't come as much as a surprise. So I think I started processing what's happening to me early on. But it's funny. I've always wondered why I was really into like crazy socks.
Yeah.
Different colored socks. And I think it's sort of a subconscious way of me saying, hey, I'm not ashamed of these little broomsticks on my legs. And sort of making fun of myself before other people make fun of me, but that could be why. And so one thing that this diagnosis gave me was eligibility for a division in the CrossFit Games called the neuromuscular division. And look, I've been doing functional fitness for all of my life. I've identified that way of training, whether it's a CrossFit methodology or sort of the byproduct I've been doing for many, many years, gets you some really good results in a really quick amount of time. And so I joined a gym up here on the coast called CrossFit Sisyphus, mainly because of the coaches there, Mike and Brett. It's hard for the head coach of an international company to find a coach who's willing to coach them to their ability. And these guys can do that. And so, I joined that gym. They've taught me to work with my abilities rather than try and be someone I could never be. And so last year, CrossFit, first time for the CrossFit Games, put on the adaptive division. And so we sort of said, look, let's not apply for that. Let's just see how that pans out. And then the next year, let's see how we go. And so sort of a Hail Mary, I put myself in the division. I went through the first round of qualifying, which is called the CrossFit Open. Ticked that box, went through the semi-finals about 3 weeks ago, which was 6 workouts over 3 days done in my gym. And ticked the box there. I managed to make the top 5, and the top 5 from that category get an invite to Madison, Wisconsin in August. So I was lucky enough to make it through that category and get the invite. And so now the preparations for the CrossFit Games has begun, and it is terrifying, but very exciting at the same time. It sort of reminds me of being on stage again. Like, I don't know, before you do like a speech or something, you get those butterflies in your stomach, but those butterflies are a good thing, because that's a whole part of the whole process. So I've been having butterflies for the last 2 weeks, and we'll probably have butterflies for the next 6 weeks. Super excited to celebrate my body and what it can do on an international stage. So it's a very exciting time.
Are you going to be wearing any special socks for the occasion?
I'll try, but they sort of they mandate what you can wear because of sponsors and stuff like that. So look, I'll wherever there's an opportunity, I'll show a bit of ankle flare, but they keep pretty tight tabs on that. Yeah.
So do you remember the socks? I just love the socks when I was going through the gym and seeing you walk past, and always envious of a good pair of fancy socks. So but your partner's got a GoFundMe page set up to help you get over there. Is that right?
She does. When budgeting for this, I was so surprised about how much it would cost. It's outrageous. So there's a lot of inflation happening in the States at the moment. Accommodation is outrageous. And so it's going to cost about $20,000 to get over there. So Jane has put together a GoFundMe page. I think we're at about $5,000 at the moment, which helps a lot. If the page is still up when people listen to this or watch this, do a little Google. Maybe we can put it in the show notes or something.
Yeah, we'll be putting the link in the show notes. Don't you worry about
that. Just to help out. We've got a baby on the way very soon, and I don't want to dig us into too much debt. I feel rather selfish for doing that, but it costs a lot of money, but it's definitely worth it.
Well, it's inspirational. I'm excited. Do they put it up on the web, or how can people watch it if they wanted to watch it?
Absolutely. Yeah, there'll be a live stream. So there'll be a live stream for most of my events, perhaps not all. But if you jump on the CrossFit Games website, they'll be able to inform you when those live streams are on. It's just through YouTube. And those videos will be up there for after the event as well. So if you're watching this after the event, feel free to go and have a squeeze. Now,
you mentioned you're about to become a dad again. Very exciting. Yes. How far away are you?
What's the date?
Any minute now?
Yeah, pretty much. It's so the last couple of days, Jane's been saying, she's been feeling a bit different. So we know there's some stuff happening. The baby's dropping a bit. Her energy is sort of dying down. She's quite hyperactive, and to see her lying on the couch for once it's quite a sign. So to be honest, I think it's going to be any day, but sort of mid next week, which might be 4 or 5 days away. I think that's when it's going to happen, mate. I am so excited. The Bonzo technique, I'm all down on it. I'm going to shake the tree. I've got all my pressure points figured out. It's I'm pumped. It's going to be a good time.
And you'll forget all about that. Take it from experience.
Great advice, mate. Thank you.
Just take each day as it comes. Like.
Got it. I appreciate it.
But I guess this opened up a bit of a segue to maybe a time that is a bit hurtful for you in parenting and so forth. And on your Instagram, you're very open about this type of stuff. And last year you posted about the International Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. So I was keen to hear a bit about this story and what you can share from it.
Absolutely. So this pregnancy that we're going through now is our second. Our firstborn son, his name was Aurelian. He was born in October 2020, and unfortunately, he passed away shortly after he was born. At the 20-week scan, we knew something was wrong with him, and so we sort of had a choice there to sort of end things where it was, knowing that the prognosis was very slim, or let him run his own race and sort of see where he'd get. So obviously, we chose the latter. So Jane got the 30 weeks. And then we had an elective cesarean, but we got to meet the little guy. We got to hear him cry. He got to give his mum a bit of a kiss, and then he slowly but very peacefully passed away in Jane's arms afterwards. It was a very tough time, and I think a few minutes ago I mentioned make the love greater than the loss. That was our mission with Aurelian, and we think we have. And we know he's still here. We know he's still around us. We know that he's helping other little babies out there somehow. Jane very unselfishly pumped breast milk for a long time after Aurelian passed away, and donated that breast milk to her best friend. So her best friend's daughter Nina has a beautiful special connection with Aurelian. We also gave a bit of milk to Alana and Charlie, who are a part of our gym as well. So Aurelian also has a connection with little Charlie. So his legacy is far bigger than we thought it would be. Not to say it was an easy thing to go through, but we understood early on in the process that if we bottled it up and just kept it to ourselves, it would just fester away and slowly eat us alive. So we were very consciously brave to openly talk about it. One thing Jane gets a lot at the moment is people coming up and rubbing her belly and asking, "Oh, is it your first?" And we were very adamant on saying that even if it hurts people for that short connection or that short time, we can't say yes, it is our first, because it's not. So the conversation goes, look, this is our second. Our first one passed away shortly after being born, but we made the love greater than the loss, and we're very excited for the second little one. So we understood that being open about it and talking about it would be hard, obviously. But it definitely helped us in our grieving process, and it's amazing how many people are going through a similar situation, and we wouldn't be having those conversations with those people if we weren't so open about it. So us being brave in the short term will help us a lot in the long term, that's for sure. And so I'm also very aware that this conversation can be quite triggering for people as well, and I don't want that to sort of dampen anything in their day. So if something does trigger me or Jane, it always helps us to talk about it. So I'll always encourage people to talk through these things, even though it's really hard. Yeah.
And did you have any specific, well, first of all, I'm sorry to hear that loss. As a dad myself, I couldn't imagine life without my two little terrors. But my mum went through something similar. Like, so a year before I was born, mum had a little girl. Her name's Emma. Emma passed away, and I always joke with mum saying, if it wasn't for her attempt to have another girl in her life, I wouldn't be here. Because she tried to get for another girl, she got 2 more boys, so she's got 4 boys in the house now. But yeah, my heart really does break for you. But also, I'm glad that you're talking about it, because as we said before, it's just if you can help one person, although it makes a lot of people uncomfortable talking about this type of thing, if you can help one person or inspire one person to speak up about their own situation and get help, that's a wonderful thing as well. And did you have any specific supports to help you through that? Did you see a counselor or a psychologist, or did you just rely back on family? Or
Yeah, we saw a psychologist for a time there that really helped us out. We're both quite hyperactive, and so being able to sort of sit still and and be present was tough for both of us. But now we both find great benefit in it. But there was one, the only children's hospice in Queensland, the Hummingbird House, were incredible.
Yep.
So the way it sort of works is that this organisation give families with children who are life limited or have just passed away a place to go to called Hummingbird House, which is sort of in Chermside, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so after Aurelian passed away, they helped us, transport his body to Hummingbird House, where they have a special room called the Hummingbird Suite.
Mm-hmm.
And the Hummingbird Suite's kept at, I think, 3 degrees Celsius, very cold, so the body doesn't fade away physiologically. So we got to spend 7 days with Aurelian, and that's something we could never ask for. And because of them, we have memories now that we'll always remember. And they also provided us sort of with grieving tools. So there was a great chaplain there who helped us understand this beautiful dance between life and death, and they have a bit of a different perspective on it. And they do wonderful things. So when we were there, we were sharing the house with tens of other families, which was very harrowing, because we sort of all knew we were there for the same reason, and there was a strange complicity between us, even though we've never met each other before. But the nurses that work there are just, they are like, every nurse is an angel, full stop. But the nurses at Hummingbird House are something else, So that network and that service helped us out immensely. So we try and raise money for them every year by doing a workout for Aurelian in October. Mm-hmm. But I know they do a campaign with Coles most years as well, where you can pay $2 to donate to Hummingbird House. So highly recommend, particularly if you're in Queensland, looking into what they do and then supporting them in any way they can, because they give gifts that can't be given, and we're very appreciative.
Oh, wow, that's an amazing. Be sure to put Hummingbird House link in the show notes as well, just so people can have a look if they need to. But yeah, you're about to become a dad again. Very exciting, very daunting. And then you're off to CrossFit, so this is good preparation for CrossFit. Mate,
yeah, it's going to be a busy couple of months, but day by day, right? Day by day, and we'll see what happens.
We will. Now, so you tremendous hurdles that you've had to overcome in your journey. But let's talk about Jets Australia and your role as head coach there. How did this come about? Like, were you managing a gym? How did you manage to get this lead role in a really big international company?
Mate, it's a story of the stars aligning, and something. I mean, that again, I think the universe had some sort of role in. We always identified the Sunshine Coast would be a place where we wanted to live when me and Jane were living in Melbourne, but we never had an opportunity to move up there. So I've got a role helping a colleague open up an F45 in Batinia, which is an awesome studio, by the way. And if you're an F45, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a huge studio. And Sonny did an awesome job setting it up. I think he's in Airlie Beach now, opening up a new F45. Wonderful businessman. So I helped him open up that F45, but I've got to say I didn't really align with the brand value-wise. So, I handed in my resignation, and a week later, I started having a conversation with Jets. They were looking for a new sort of fitness manager or head coach, and I met with Mark, who's sort of my direct manager here and a really good friend. And he took me through the role, and then I had a chat to EJ, whose office I'm in at the moment as well. Sorry, EJ, I stole your office. And she started talking about the values of Jets. And Jets is founded on a very strong mission, purpose, vision, and a strong set of values. And during that conversation, I was on cloud nine, because everything she talked about are very core values of myself. And so for whatever reason, they thought I was right for the role, and I got the job. And I'm so lucky. I live on the Sunshine Coast. I have a very diverse and very dynamic role in which I have some influence of what I do. And to be honest, I couldn't be happier. The Jet, as you know, mate, like Jet's blah blah. You know, the team members there, Tommy in particular, Jets is just awesome. The business owners, the managers, there's a culture there that I have, a culture here, and thankfully I'm a part of it, that is unreplicatable in any other big organization like this. So I feel very grateful to be a part of it, and feel very grateful to have some influence in it. And I'm really excited sort of where we're going to be in the next sort of few years, that's for sure.
Wonderful. And what does a day in the life of a head coach look like?
That's actually, mate, it's very interesting. So my role sort of started with just looking at J Series, which is our high intensity group exercise product. And so my role was to program the workouts that were on the screen. But slowly my role sort of evolved into having a look at sort of equipment innovations and what equipment are we putting into clubs. The music, so I have a bit of a role in the music that happens in Jets clubs, particularly during J Series sessions. But I've also sort of started looking at product development. So we have a wonderful, cool 6-week challenge product that's getting a big upheaval at the end of this year, which is really cool. You know, I'm looking at nutrition products. You know, I'm developing a whole heap of things behind the scenes, which I really can't really talk about at the moment. Golly, what else? A podcast. So
just saw that.
We ourselves have just started a podcast too. We've copied the assignment. It's called Personal Best.
Yep.
So we record that every Wednesday, which is a lot of fun. And we're, first of all, mad respect for people who do this often. It's a hard gig sometimes to be engaging and do all that. So but I'm really enjoying that. My inner actor's coming out doing that. A lot of online content as well, coach training. So often I'll fly out to Victoria or New South Wales to deliver J Series or personal training. So it's everything to do with fitness on a national level. I have a hand in, and you know, again, I'm very grateful.
And what's next? You mentioned there's a few things in the pipeline, and you don't have to tell us what they are. But like, are we talking growth to the moon yet? Are we? What's the next 5 years maybe looking like for Jets?
Look, one of the best things that I think Jets is doing at the moment is our Gen 4 gyms. Blah blah is one of them. So when I came to the company, Jets to me was carpet on the floor with blue dumbbells and sort of aged equipment. And that was my perception. But the new gyms that we're rolling out and the refurbs that we're rolling out are something really special. They're special to me because that's where I do a lot of my training. I train a lot at my local CrossFit gym, but I also train a lot at Forest Glen. I don't know if you've been to that gym yet.
No, not yet.
It's you got to. It's a real indication of where we're heading. It's a very high roofs, lots of space, great room for functional fitness. And I'm very aware that the public at large still sees Jets as what we were in 2007. But one big thing I'm hoping to influence in the next few years is to get public perception of what we're doing with our new gyms and with our refurbs. You know, all the equipment's handpicked by yours truly. The floor plans are manicured by me, so I'm making sure that there's enough room for people to be able to deadlift and squat at the same time with group exercise happening. So I suppose looking forward, that's one thing I'm really looking forward to, showcasing what we're doing with our Gen 4 gyms to the world, to be honest. Along with that, so we've got a 6-week challenge happening at the end of the year, which is going to involve a very big Australian sporting icon, which I'm super excited about. I got to work with him earlier in the year. So we're bringing a bit of something different to a product at the end of the year. And we've also made a very big concerted effort to increase our online engagement. You know, traditionally, you know, a 247 brand didn't really have a foot in that space. You know, that space is for boutiques and for gyms that really sell the experience. But for your general 247, you didn't have that. But there's no reason why we shouldn't. So we have started the podcast, which is slowly giving our members a bit more applicable information, albeit filtered through my very nerdy brain. That's going to be sent out. So I'm hoping that we can continue that for a long time to provide our members with the tools they need to get in the best shape of their life in the shortest time possible, done the Jets way. but also a lot more content on YouTube, and we ventured out into the brave world of TikTok. So expanding, mate, it is a brave world. Holy moly, people are ruthless on there. But
I've
yeah,
just
mate,
been thinking about starting my own TikTok, so it's good to know.
yeah, prepare yourself. Just it's great, but the engagement's incredible. It's, people are on it all the time, and but they're very willing to give their opinion, and that's okay. That's what the format's there for. But mate, I'm looking to expand our presence digitally, and what we're doing in our brick and mortar gyms, of course, as well. So there's a lot of really exciting things to happen with us.
Wow. It reminds me of when COVID hit, and I was still doing J series up until that point, and then the gyms closed, and very quickly Jets adapted into that online app space and putting everything on there so that people could still work out at home. And do you think this acceleration has come from that, or was it in the pipeline a bit earlier?
Mate, it was in the pipeline, to be honest. But I suppose what COVID has done is allowed us to either realign our strategy to the current market, or double down on what we were really doing beforehand. And what we found is our strategy beforehand was correct. What we want to do with Jets is the right direction, but we sort of need to make a few tweaks to encompass that world, the digital world. And we learned a lot. So we learned what worked, sort of from a business point of view, what is replicatable en masse and on scale to be profitable. And what we want to do is, obviously provide everyone with a really good fitness experience, and to get the best results of their lives, that's for sure. But we've also got to understand as well, there's a lot of business owners in our network that need to make their money. So we need to make whatever product we do, be it digitally or in club, profitable for that business owner as well. So it's a challenge sometimes, because you want to sort of put all your eggs in this basket, but sort of the monetary return from all that fitness just isn't there sometimes. So it's definitely changed the way we think about things. But look, we're pretty certain in our direction, and all the stats and the trends at the moment are trending in that direction. Jets itself was born in a recession. And now we're sort of seeing that climate, perhaps happen again right now. So we know we're recession proof, and we're going to come out of whatever happens in the next few years on top, for sure.
And for someone who hasn't been to a Jets gym before, but they're thinking about it, what can they expect when they walk through the door?
An incredible club manager that's going to hold your hand, as you know, Simon, the entire way. And that's what really sets us apart. We have state-of-the-art equipment. That's a no-brainer. We have space to move to do whatever style of training you want in it, be it CrossFit, be it bodybuilding, be it powerlifting, aerobics, Pilates, if that's your thing. You can do that to some degree within a Jets gym. But what separates us is our humanity. And look, we are very good. To play tootin' Jets horn here, we hire really well. We only hire good people, and that's for a reason, because they represent the equipment and what you can do in the club. And when you walk into a Jets gym, you're going to have a club manager that actually cares and actually wants the best for you and your results, which is why they'll give you the right direction, point you in the right direction, and check up with you along the way as well. It's the culture, it's the feel, it's the vibe, and that's something we've been trying to generate for 15 years now. We're really good at it, and we're very proud of that feeling you have when you walk into a Jets club.
Yeah, no, it is a good feeling to go in, and it's got a good community as well. And I see with some of the I still follow Jets online, and even though I'm not a member at the moment, they're hitting the beach with their 6-week challenges as well, and joining with other clubs and connecting up as well. And it's really good to see. Bringing people together in all different walks of life, and it doesn't cost an arm and a leg. You mentioned F45 a few times, and you often see in the gym space that, particularly if you're about to become a dad again, like once you're a parent, finding time and money to put to yourself as opposed to family life can be a bit challenging for a lot of parents. But at Jets, there's a heaps of new mums and dads there, and it is a great feeling, because it's not, you're not breaking the bank to get fit and healthy as well, and have some important me time as well, because once you become a parent, it's all consuming. So
can't wait, mate.
Now, I'd love to hear some advice that you could give now. So you've got two fronts we can go on. It's probably maybe both fronts, and I have a feeling they might be a very similar response. But someone who might be struggling with their mental or physical health, maybe they want to get fit again or just do something, connect with the community through jets or something like that, or even someone who's going through pregnancy or infant loss. You've been through that as well. Both cases, they want to get help, but they're not sure where to start. What's something that you can say, drawing from your experience, both as a dad, as a bloke, as someone who's gone through cancer, as the head coach of Jets Australia? What could you say to them today to maybe get them started on their recovery journey?
Well, I think look, I'm a big advocate for, everyone needs a coach. Even coaches need coaches. I think about, Usain Bolt, or the people who are, this is just me taking you back to fitness again. I do this a lot, but if you look at anyone at the top of their craft or the top of their sport, they have someone programming for them, looking after them. So if we know we want to sort of start a journey of sorts, we need a mentor. We need a mentor or a coach to help us out. And that could be a personal trainer. It could be just a club manager at your local Jets gym. It could be that you listen to the Personal Best podcast and you start to understand the principles that we're talking about, and you have sort of a virtual coach. But you need someone looking after you. After you've sort of got that person who can point you in the right direction, then you can start learning. And one thing that I'm a big proponent of is that your body is an integrated system. The way you think affects the way you feel. The way you feel affects the way you eat. The way you eat affects the way you sleep. The way you sleep affects the way you train. Everything is this crazy integrated web. So we know that if we want to feel better, we can start with exercising. That's going to get us to some point. But then we sort of need to understand that the way we sleep affects everything. The way we eat affects everything. The way we sit under artificial light affects our biology as well. So it's just this understanding that we need to think about this holistic approach, or as precision nutrition put it, this deep health continuum.
Mm-hmm.
We are not just the sum of our workouts, we're the sum of how we do everything. How you do anything is how you do everything. So my advice is sort of to get a coach or to get a mentor, and often that just starts with a conversation. You don't have to commit to anything at all, and then it starts with understanding your body is this amazing integrated system, and that once you start exercising right, or if you decide to start eating right, there'll be a snowball effect into another part of your lifestyle. Then lean in and start to feel how you eating broccoli in the middle of the day makes you sleep better at night. And then once you start connecting those dots, everything else sort of starts to fall into place. And then you become like me and become a very compulsive person, understanding that how to optimize yourself is a really important thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a beautiful thing as well. So I think that's the advice that I would give. And then we're not in this alone.
Yeah.
Never, ever. Always find someone to share with. People are always willing to help.
Yeah, wonderful advice. But I've really enjoyed our conversation today. I could talk to you all day. But I'll leave you with one more thing to throw it over to you to plug something that you're passionate about, or maybe a good resource, good TV show that you're watching, good workout that you're enjoying at the moment. Whatever you want to plug is up to you. The mic's over to you.
Excellent. We talked about the podcast, Personal Best Podcast, plug that. But there is a television show that I watched recently called Dispatches from Elsewhere. Mm-hmm. I watch some television, not a lot, but every now and then a show will come up that changes my perspective on things, and this is one of them. It's got Jason Segel in it, him from Meeting Sarah Marshall and How I Met Your Mother. So I think he wrote it and produced it, but it's just a very interesting perspective on life. Look, mate, I don't often recommend people sitting in front of the television for 10 hours, but this one's worth your time. I can't remember what streaming service it's on, but it really changed the way I think and the way I feel, which is a hard thing to do through media these days. So Dispatches from Elsewhere is my recommendation.
All right. I'm sure to check it out next. I've actually just run out of a show to watch, so that's my next one. But it's been an amazing chat with you today. So grateful to take some time out of your day and have a chat for mindful men, but also for mums and dads out there and other blokes out there. keen to get physical again. So thank you so much.
My pleasure, Simon. Thanks for having me.
Well, that's a wrap for today's episode, and I hope you got some value from it. If anything triggered your mental health today, please reach out to your support networks. Also, if you loved what you heard, be sure to subscribe to the show and share it with your mates. For more from Mindful Men, you can check us out on Instagram and YouTube, and I'll throw the links to these pages in the show notes below. But until next time, stay mindful.